Meeting call to order for the Westfield Redevelopment Commission meeting of May 21st, 2025. 19th, I'm sorry, I was looking at the minutes. First order of the day is declaration of a quorum. David?
Joe Plankus,
Here?
John Dart,
Here.
Larry Kemper,
Here.
Brian Pulowski.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. Thank you. Brian, please note that Brian Michael is absent. Okay, next step, Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, we have no changes to the agenda. Next is the minutes from the April 21st RDC meeting. Are there any changes or comments on the minutes for last month's meeting? If not, I'm open for a motion for approval.
Motion to approve the minutes from April 21st.
Motion by John Dart. Do I have a second?
Second.
Brian Pulowski, thank you. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. David?
Joe Plankus,
Aye.
John Dart,
Aye.
Larry Kemper,
Aye.
Brian Pulowski.
Okay, motion passes 4-0. Thank you very much. Next item is the approval of executive session memorandum. I'm open for a motion for approval.
Motion to approve.
Okay, Brian Pulowski. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Larry Kemper. Thank you. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. David?
Joe Plankus,
Aye.
John Dart,
Aye.
Larry Kemper,
Aye.
Brian Pulowski.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 4-0. Thank you very much. Next item is financial matters, and I had a few questions here that I would like to raise. In looking at the first statement, which is a summary of the cash fund and investment balances, I was under the impression we had about 13 million in the bank, but I see the figure shows 27 million because it includes the capital projects as part of that total. Janelle, can you kind of go through this for us?
Yes.
Please, thank you.
So the 266 GF Capital Projects Fund shows up in this report because it is allocated to the redevelopment department, which is a part of the city, but it is part of the general fund, which is not part of the redevelopment commission taxing unit. So this is just a way that Marla runs the report, that it is getting connected in with this from a reporting standpoint, but is not actually in our taxing district. It is actually in the general fund. And the reason that it is showing that we are paying for a project here right now, this is the fire station project. There is a bond that was recently approved for the fire station. Temporarily, we are paying for that project out of this 266 fund, which is allocated for redevelopment capital projects, and that fund will get reimbursed after the bond closing.
Okay. That was one of the confusing things
Yes.
as I went through the report.
Yes, and one other point of clarification here, because this is part of the general fund, it is not part of the RDC fund, it will not show up in our budget or our cash flow, because again, it is not part of our budget, it's part of the general fund budget.
Okay, which is under the control of the council.
Correct.
Okay. The interest report, obviously, we're getting some pretty good interest at $42,000 a month. And I guess I would ask the commission members, is there anything that you folks see that you think should be tweaked on any of these three financial reports that might make things more useful as far as understanding what's taken place? Okay, I think we've tweaked it pretty good. I personally like what I see as far as the format and the information it provides. Much better feel for the legal and the consulting role that we have. So if there's no, and we really don't need to approve these, correct, Janelle? It's really information for
Correct.
As long as we're not over budget, we're in good shape. Okay, we'll move on to approval of claims. Were there any questions or comments on claims?
I'd make a motion to approve.
Okay, motion for approval.
Second.
John Dart for a second. David, please take the roll.
Joe Plankis,
Aye.
John Dart,
Aye.
Larry Kemper,
Aye.
Brian Pulowski.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 4-0. Thank you very much. Let me just back up to the financials for a second, and maybe you can help us with this, Janelle. There's a My Board donation of $5,000?
Yes, this is a grant that was applied for. Claire, would you like to come up for a minute and talk about the grant? Thank you.
Yeah, so Lauren and I worked diligently to bring some more art to our downtown. And so my board does a really great job of doing quarterly grants that are tied to art activations in addition to traditional economic development programs. And so we turned around an application for this grant opportunity in 2 days, and we were awarded $5,000 for the Indigo art canvas that you can see in Grand Junction. So the goal of that is that we really wanted to find a local artist to provide a great canvas for the exterior of the bus, and then it serves as a pop-up retail shop. So the goal is to find some entrepreneurs that are operating maybe out of their house, let them test the market in hopes that they can find a permanent location later on. So my board was a really great partner in helping us fund some of the art for the exterior bus, and so that's what this is.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Cool effort. Thank you for that.
2 days, huh?
2 days.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was
Awesome.
pretty quick, but we did it.
Awesome.
Yes. So
Thank you to both of you for that effort. Appreciate it.
yeah, so if you haven't seen it in the park, go see it. It's really cool.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay, Executive Director report, Janelle.
Thank you. All right, I am going to get out there this month and get some updated photos from some of these projects because there has been quite a bit of work, even over the last couple of weeks, at our downtown projects. Let me bring up our full size here. So Union Square is scheduled to open in just over a month. Both the residential and the parking garage will be open at the end of June. We don't have an actual grand opening date yet, but working on that. This will also have some retail spaces that you can see there being built out a couple months ago across the south side of Union Square facing Grand Junction Plaza. Those will come online here over the next few months. They're in the tenant build-out phase. I know Old Town has been working diligently to get some really exciting tenants into this space and looking forward to those announcements coming out to the public soon. In addition to Sun King, which of course everyone is very excited about and has started going vertical here in the last couple weeks. So again, we'll get some photos there, but there is steel in the air, which is exciting. We also have seen some additional progress. Again, this photo taken 2 months ago at H Steakhouse. When I was out there over the weekend, they had a lot of the wood framing up for the facility, and it's starting to actually look like a building shape, which is amazing. And this project, I don't have an estimated opening date. I will check in with Henry Najum to see when he's expected to be complete, but again, progressing quite nicely. One other project that we've seen here for approvals over the last year that has broken ground recently, this is at Town Run. This is a combination of a Lifetime Fitness as well as some retail mixed use located along town just north of 146th Street. Lifetime broke ground in May. I think it was about 2 weeks ago, and the balance of the project should break ground in Q1 of 2026. And this is timed so that all of that project should come online approximately 18 months from now, so that, you know, anyway, everything will be all online towards the end of the year in 2027, including the public improvements that are planned there at the intersection of 146th and Town Road. The Ambrose on Main project is progressing. They are working on a schedule for their bond closing and their construction financing here towards the middle to end of Q2 of 2025, so here sometime in May or June. And we expect them to start construction on the project in Q3. This is at East Street and State Road 32 downtown. Some of our current items that we're going to be talking about today on our agenda, just wanted to kind of give you just a recap of where we are on some of these projects so that you can understand where we're headed on some changes or some opportunities that we're asking for your approval on. The first is a contract which we're going to be requesting approval for. This is an amendment to the original master plan agreement with Spec Dempsey. We, as we're working through the development planning process with Keystone specifically north of 186th Street, we've identified some opportunities for improvement or maybe refining the plans in order to better respond to the development needs. Some of the specific items that we are looking to engage Spec Dempsey for would be for a peer review. We have a headquarters that we're talking to on one of the parcels along Grand Park Boulevard, which would require some slight modifications to the way we're designing the block. And we'd really like their input on how we're modifying entrances into the parking garages, where we're putting our public infrastructure, transformers, if we need to make adjustments to sidewalks or streets, access, that type of thing. We've also identified that we think that the alignment of Grand Park Boulevard could use some improvements. The way that it's currently aligned in their plan has a really nice flow to it, but it would require some modification of the detention pond on the east side of Grand Park Boulevard. And we think we could realize some cost savings by gentling that curve a bit, or maybe, I guess, making a bit more of a severe curve so that we're not encroaching in that drainage area. So they're looking at a new alignment for us there, as well as a parking strategy for the lines of drop-off and pickup opportunities that we have on our weeknight local practices. So as parents are arriving to pick up their students or their children from practices, or people are in line to drop off, that we have places where they can sit and they can wait for their children without creating a backup all the way under 191st Street. So these and some other opportunities will be what we'll be bringing Jeff Speck and his team, including Perkins and Will, in to advise on. Another item that we'll be talking about tonight is Park and Poplar. This is just another look at the Park and Poplar project that's being proposed. The PUD, I see I did not update my item here. It was actually adopted on May 12th, 2025. This total project investment is approximately $123 million. The current assessed value is just under $1 million at $91,000 per acre. Our future assessed value of the project is almost $60 million at $5.5 million an acre. Annual tax increment that this project will bring in is about $1.1 million a year, and it will benefit the schools immediately at almost $140,000 a year. Incentives that we're providing to the developer on this project include a grant of the land and a city-backed bond to pay for the garage. There will be a taxpayer agreement associated with that bond to ensure that the assessed values, the money that is being collected by the city, is adequate to repay the bond obligations. And then we'll also be using park impact fee and road impact fees applied towards building out the plaza on the site. This project will have 240 luxury multifamily units, 56 brownstone apartments along Poplar, which you can see there in the exhibit over there on the left in blue, and then in the upper right rendering. It will have almost 10,000 square feet of commercial and retail space on the first floor, 60,000 square feet of office shared across 2 office buildings, 523 structured parking spaces, and an additional 90 surface parking spaces. The trail and plaza improvements will be designed concurrently with some improvements along Park Street that we are studying with Rundell Ernstberger and Crossroad Engineers, and there will be public restrooms available in the project within the parking garage footprint. Another project we'll be reviewing today is the Woodwind East project. The PUD for this first phase of the project was approved a few months ago at City Council, and we are looking at 2 phases of this project with Old Town. The first, again, is entitled with the PUD. The second would be going to City Council for approval at a later date. And this would, phase 1 would be 184 lots with an average sale price of $1 million. Total estimated investment of about $130 million into the development. The assessed value currently is about $104,000, and future would be approximately $120 million. This will bring in an annual tax increment of about $833,000 a year. Do want to point out the reason that the increment on this is less than the previous project, despite it being an assessed value that's much higher, is because these are residential properties and they are capped at 1%. So of course we have a lower tax increment provided. This is part of a residential TIF area, which we did a declaratory resolution for earlier in the year, and would include a phase 1 city-backed bond. This would be 100% of the TIF allocated towards improvements associated with this development, which would be specifically invested into development of 3 new golf holes at Woodwind. These would be built by the developer under an economic development TIF bond. We will have annual school referendum dollars coming in of $184,000 a year, and we are also passing through all of the TIF to the schools. So the normal tax that the schools would be receiving will still be passed through to them. That is an additional $826,000 per year. Phase 2 of this project would include improvements to the existing Woodwind golf course, and our project agreement I'll talk through a bit in more detail as we're going through the agenda items. And those are the highlights that I have here today.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate the update. There's a lot going on, needless to say. Old business, we have none. We'll go on to new business. Action item number 1 for us is the amendment to the Spec Dempsey contract. Janelle?
Yeah, so as I mentioned previously, we've requested a proposal to amend the original contract that we had with Spec Dempsey to allow for some additional services associated with peer review. If you have any questions about what I just presented previously, please let me know, but I think I covered most of it during my executive director report.
I noticed that this was sent to you via email, but many times, unfortunately, in municipal business, they don't put dates on it. Now, you've got a date of April 30th on the actual amendment to the contract, but doesn't really say when you got the information. So my only request would be is, as you receive documentation, make sure that there's a date on it so we know when you receive it, and because you've got all the different
on the proposal?
Hourly rates on there, but that particular document doesn't say when you received it. So we don't know if it's timely, if it's an old one, whatever.
I think that this is just an issue with the exhibit not having a page break correctly. I think the date of the April 30th is the date for this email.
Original document.
So, yeah, see the Exhibit 1 label is before the page break. So I think that's just an issue with the page break. The document itself would be executed as of today, May 9th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, do we have any questions for Janelle from, in regards to this item? If not, I'm open for a motion for approval.
Motion to approve.
Okay, Brian Pawlowski, motion for approval. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, John Dart. Thank you very much. David, please take the roll.
Joe Plankis,
Aye.
John Dart,
Aye.
Larry Kemper,
Aye.
Brian Pawlowski.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 4-0. Thank you very much. Next item is Resolution 17-2025, amendments to declaratory resolution, East Side EDA, and creation of the Park and Poplar allocation area. Janelle?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Before I start getting into these next few items, I know Larry Kemper wanted to address that he has a few items here that he's not going to be voting on this evening. So I guess before I start introducing those projects, if you just want to give us a recap of
Sure, do you
which action items.
mention both now, or just this one?
Yeah, you could mention, we've got, I think we have
It's
a few of
items-
them here.
Yeah, it's items B and G, so action item number 2 and action item number 7 on the new business agenda tonight, due to a potential conflict of interest in a matter in which I have no pecuniary interest, I must abstain from voting on those 2 matters.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right, so what we have here is amendments to the declaratory resolution for the East Side EDA and creation of the Park and Poplar allocation area. Let me get this one up here. So this is the 4th step in the process. We are removing, wait, are we, sorry, is this declaratory or we confer? This is declaratory. This is our first step in the process. I apologize. We have so many of these, I've forgotten which step we're in with all of them. Okay, so this is the East Side allocation area. We are removing 3 parcels from the existing East Side allocation area and putting them into the Park and Poplar allocation area. And then we have additional parcels which we will be putting into the Park and Poplar allocation area, which are all listed here. And we do have a map, which is a lot easier to follow. So this is the map in orange of the parcels which will be included in the Park and Poplar allocation area. We have 2 parcels on the north side of the Midland Trace Trail, south of Park Street. There is also a parcel that is generally captured by this orange outline here. But if you can see in the yellow, I'm going to zoom in just a bit. This is an interesting parcel that is in multiple pieces. So there's a piece right in here that we are actually going to be modifying the alignment of the Midland Trace Trail, and portions of this will be captured by development parcels. There's also another little piece that's over here. So at some point, we'll probably clean up these parcels to make sure that what is right-of-way actually gets dedicated as right-of-way or vacated appropriately. So there'll be some cleanup, but we did want to make sure that everything shows up in this economic development area for the project.
Will there have to be a land survey taken for that?
Yeah, we'll probably end up having to do a survey as the Midland Trace Trail improvements happen anyway, so we would just clean that up at the same time. We also do have the additional parcels here on the south side of the Midland Trace Trail. I do want to point out that the number, if you count the number of parcels in the list and then you count the number of parcels that appear in the exhibit, they don't look like they match up. And part of it is that we do have these little parcels along the Midland Trace Trail, which are all one parcel number. And then there are also 2 parcels, this little sliver here and this here, which appear to be 2 separate parcels, but they're actually one. I don't know why they're separated, but these would all be included in the Park and Poplar economic development or allocation area, and it would be a single site allocation area for the purposes of the project. And Adam, do you have anything that you want to add on this? Okay, great. Well, Adam is here from Barnes and Thornburg. If you have any additional questions
Good evening.
related to the declaratory resolution.
Okay, commission members, have any questions for Janelle or anyone else? Okay, seeing none, open for motion for approval.
Motion approved.
Okay, Brian Pawlowski, motion for approval.
Second.
Second by John Dart. David, please take the roll.
Joe Plankis,
Aye.
John Dart,
Aye.
Brian Pulaski.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0. Larry is shown as abstaining. Are you back in for the next one then, Larry? Yes. Okay. Next item is Resolution 18-2025 regarding the Union Square Amendment and Restated Declaration.
Thank you, Mr. President. Okay, we have an existing declaration, parking declaration for Union Square. And the actual agreement will be presented to both Commission and to the Building Corp for signature. So this resolution authorizes the negotiation of the final version of this document to be executed by both parties. We'll have to take a corresponding resolution to the building corp, make sure that all parties are agreeing with the actual final language of this declaration. Also, I do want to note, this is not just an amendment to as a supplement. This will actually be a restated declaration, so that 5 years, 10 years from now, when we're trying to figure out what is going on with Union Square, we have all the information in a single document, and we know what is controlling rather than having to go back and forth and look for the differences. So we're making a couple of changes to the original declaration, and I might draw on Ryan here to make sure that I grab everything that we need to be discussing. But I think our main topics here are the designation that this would eliminate, where are we here? One more? Okay. So we are now giving the option to the developer to purchase on a monthly basis a limited number of garage passes for Union Square. So I think when we had originally looked at this, the intent was that there was going to be reserved parking that would be specifically reserved for the residents of Union Square. And in our discussions with the developer on how they would like to have this garage managed in order to ensure that there's the most flexibility in parking and the most opportunity for optimal use of the garage, their preference would be, rather than having specific reserved parking spaces, that we have parking passes that are available to the residents and the tenants of the garage. They would be administered by the city because the city is the owner of the garage, but that administration would only go as far as selling those passes to the developer. The developer would then have the right to administer to its tenants those specific passes. So for example, if they have an apartment tenant, they can provide a pass to that apartment tenant directly. That way they know it is an actual resident of the garage. If they have someone who's working in a retail space or in an office building, they can manage that with those tenants, rather than the city having to figure out whether or not each of these individual users is an actual employee or resident of the garage. So this will allow for them to purchase those from us and then for them to administer that. It also allocates the maintenance and...
Can we stop there for a second?
Yes.
I thought the parking garages were no reserve.
They will be parking passes for unreserved spaces. So they will have the right to park in them, like monthly parking. So the garages will be free to the public for a minimum of 3 hours. We could charge for beyond 3 hours. The parking passes would give the residents and the tenants, well, it would give the residents the right to park in that garage overnight. The public would not have the right to park in that garage overnight unless they've purchased the right to park in it overnight. So if, for example, if someone is visiting Westfield and they would like to buy a daily pass to be able to park more than 3 hours, they could buy that daily pass. The people who live there would have a pass allowing them to park there all the time.
This is new, because we've been promoting the downtown garages as no reserve.
They are not reserved parking spaces.
I still don't understand the difference here.
So the parking spaces will not have signs that each individual space is reserved for a user. It will be first come, first serve. The difference between what the residents of Union Square will experience versus someone who doesn't live at Union Square or work at Union Square is that they will have a parking pass that enables them to park in the garage anytime they want, and they're not going to pay per use. Anyone else that wants to park there will have to pay a daily rate if they want to park beyond 3 hours. So they're not specifically reserved parking spaces, but they do not have to pay per day.
But
They
you're
just
saying-
pay
but-
per month.
But let's just say there's an event downtown at the park, and guests of downtown Westfield go in and park in that ramp and that parking garage, and there's no spots for residents. The residents are SOL in this case until somebody leaves at 10 p.m. and then they can pull their car in. They won't be able to show I've got my pass. They won't be able to show that and get into the garage.
That is correct.
So what good is a pass?
The pass gives you the right to not have to pay for each individual day that you would be parking there beyond the 3
You're
hours.
paying for something that you have no guarantee.
That is correct. That is correct. And this is
Well,
the,
nobody's agreed anything yet.
well, the developer has requested this method of administration for the parking because it gives the maximum amount of flexibility on how the garage is used.
But this is not how we discussed it in the council. Am I correct?
This
We-
is
we-
the same, this is the
an
same
amendment-
concept.
This is an amendment that hasn't been put in front of the council.
This is correct, because this agreement is between the RDC and the building corp and the developer. But the concept of this is the same concept that we have discussed with city council. They will be unreserved spaces, and there will be monthly parking passes allowing the residents to park there.
Has Old Town done this system, for instance, at the Federal in Noblesville? Have they had past
They are
experience?
specifically looking for a different solution than what they used at Federal Hill because it did not work.
Wow.
So this arrangement is at the request of the developer.
But
And maximizes the use of the garage. The developer has specifically requested not to have parking spaces specifically reserved for residents.
Who's policing the greater than 3 hours?
Yeah, so we will have a couple of systems in place. One is that we'll have a parking management system called Eco Parking that will track when vehicles enter and leave the garage so that you know how long someone has been parked in each individual parking space. So the system that they have, online system that allows you at any time to, not anyone, but whoever has access to their parking management data, would have the ability to open up the interface and click on a parking space and tell how long somebody has been parked in that parking space. We will also have license plate reader technology that will keep track of when people are entering and exiting the garage, and the parking technology, the payment system. I know Matt Deck has been working with Dennison on what that payment system is going to be. I don't have the details of how that is all being managed, but Dennison will be managing the payments and the management of that
So
system.
if they park for greater than 3 hours, they'll just automatically be charged or towed or what?
That is something that we're working out with Dennison as our parking management company. So not all of the answers are there, but Dennison has been selected to operate and manage the garage. So these are the substantial changes to the parking declaration that is here in front of you today.
Is this premature in light of the fact that the entire system or process is not yet defined?
No, this is going to open in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And we need to have a system in place before it opens. And as I've said before, this is the system that has been requested by the developer, and they believe is the most optimal way for them to ensure that their residents and their tenants have parking available, and the patrons.
what is the fee that's going to be charged?
I do not know what the fee is.
So somebody's going to be paying $2,400 a month for rent and a fee on top of that.
That is correct.
Okay.
I hope they do a good job of explaining that to their residents.
They will have to do a job of explaining that to the residents. I'm sure that their fee will be very minimal compared to what it is elsewhere.
Okay.
If I could add one more item, the fees that are collected by the city, so when Old Town purchases these passes from the city, those dollars are used to help maintain the parking garage. So the maintenance and repairs that will happen in the garage are the responsibility of the city primarily, and those parking fees collected from those passes that are sold to Old Town will be used as a source to pay for those services.
And the fees from the other people that use the garage, then obviously it would
Correct.
be for the same purpose.
Yes.
This is different, ladies and gentlemen, that the city is maintaining this garage, but the city is not maintaining and responsible for the other parking facilities downtown.
That is correct. Yes, this is the only parking garage that is city-owned in downtown. And the only one being proposed as city-owned in downtown.
Okay. Other questions for Janelle? If not, we're open for a motion for approval.
Motion to approve.
Okay, Brian Polowski, we have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
Larry Kemper. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. John? Or David?
Joe Plankis,
Aye.
John Dart,
No.
Larry Kemper,
Aye.
Brian Pulaski.
Aye.
Okay, we have a 3-to-1 vote. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is Resolution 19-2025, Park Street/Moyer parcels accepting grant from the city.
Thank you, Mr. President. This action item and the one to follow are associated with the same two parcels. And here's our legal description. Here's our parcel plat. Give you some description of where we are. So this is at the very west end of Park Street downtown, just east of US 31. We have two parcels here. There's one here shown in the black triangle, and then the other that's this trapezoid right next to it. And I guess that's not a trapezoid. Anyway, we have these two pieces that will be granted from the city to the RDC, and then from the RDC to the CDC today in these two actions. And the end goal is that these two parcels will be granted to Dan Moyer. This is in association with some land transfers that occurred back in 2018, part of a development agreement, when US 31 was being modified here. And this was just cleanup from this old development agreement. So the intent here is that these two parcels would become part of Dan Moyer's property, and then the Park Street right-of-way that is located right in this area would be vacated, and both pieces would be acquired as part of that vacation by Dan Moyer, and then he would have a total of 8 acres that would all be contiguous, which he could use for future development or to sell as one developable parcel. So again, the legal descriptions on these two resolutions are identical. This is just a 2-step process of receiving a grant and then granting.
So as I understand, I think Dan owns a property on the north side of Park at this location. So
Yes.
by vacating the street, again, makes it contiguous, and he's able to have an entire 8-acre plot that can be developed by whoever.
That is correct.
Okay, questions for Janelle? Okay, if not, I'm open for a motion for approval. David?
Motion to approve.
Well, wait a minute. Yeah, I'm sorry, Brian Pulowski, I'm ahead of myself. We got a motion by Brian Pulowski. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, second by Larry Kemper. David, please take the roll.
Joe Plankis,
Aye.
John Dart,
Aye.
Larry Kemper,
Aye.
Brian Pulaski.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 4-0. Thank you. Next item is Resolution 20-2025, Park Street Moyer Parcels Grant to DWCDC. Janelle?
Yes, Mr. President. Same spiel as the last one, just showing here that these are the same legal descriptions of the land that we have just presented for a receipt of a grant, and now we are granting to the CDC. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions for Janelle on the second motion in regards to these parcels? If not, I'm open for a motion for approval.
Motion to approve.
Brian Pawlowski, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Larry Kemper, second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. David?
Joe Plankis,
Aye.
John Dart,
Aye.
Larry Kemper,
Aye.
Brian Pulaski.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Thank you very much. Next item is Resolution 21-2025, Craigwood Parcel Grant to DWCDC. Janelle?
Thank you, Mr. President. To be clear, this is not a grant of the land. This is the grant of funds for the CDC to purchase land. Craigwood owns 17 acres at the northwest corner. Oh, I'm so sorry. Clicked on the wrong item. We are granting for the land acquisition of the 17-acre parcel, which is owned at the northwest corner of Grand Park Boulevard and 186th Street. This is part of the Grand Park Master Plan, and the CDC has had this, Downtown Westfield CDC has had this land under contract and is planning to close on it later this summer. And the funds that we are requesting to be granted here would be part of the bond proceeds from the Grand Park bond that was approved last month. The purchase is approximately $9.3 million. So we are requesting this money be granted from the RDC to the CDC to enable that closing.
So if I understand the math here that I did very quickly, it's $552,000 an acre.
It is 550,000, so it's not exactly 17 acres, it's like 17.1
Yeah, I know it's
or
an odd
something.
number.
Yeah.
I look back and I look at the land we purchased from Craigwood for Grant Park, and it was in the low 30s. So we have a bargain there.
Yes, for
Okay.
sure.
Any questions for Janelle on this item? Okay, if not, I'm open for a motion for approval.
Motion to approve?
Brian Polowski, motion to approve. Second. John Dart, second. David, please take the roll.
Joe Plankis.
Aye.
John Dart.
Aye.
Larry Kemper.
Aye.
Brian Pulowski.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Thank you very much. Next item is Resolution 22-2025 Woodwind Project Agreement. Janelle?
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a resolution authorizing the execution of a project agreement for the Woodwind project, which I described in the Executive Director's report. This is with Old Town Development. They would be developing not only the 184 parcel residential development for Phase 1, and constructing the 3 new golf holes on the north side of 161st Street. But this also does contemplate a Phase 2 of the project, which has not yet been entitled within the existing footprint of Woodwind. When the 3 new holes are constructed on land that Old Town owns on the north side of 161st Street, the project agreement would anticipate that there would be a land swap between Woodwind property and the property that would be granted to Woodwind with the 3 new holes. And then the Phase 2 of the project would develop additional residential properties, and the residential TIF provided from that project would fund the reconstruction of 3 existing holes on the Woodwind project. It has been brought to our attention that there's the possibility that Phase 2 project could potentially not be approved. The entitlement may not exist without a PUD already in place. We want to make sure that there are alternative solutions. So we are still working through the developer on approval of those alternatives, but those 2 being that we would contemplate a land swap for another piece of land somewhere in the city of equal, comparable size and value, or that we could determine a fair market value for us to purchase the land that the 3 holes are built on in order for us to keep the existing Woodwind land. I know that there's specific interest in building a driving range at Woodwind Golf Course, and so we definitely want to keep our options open to make sure that that's something that we can consider with future developments at Woodwind, and the development agreement would need to address that possibility.
And as I understand it from the city council meeting, that option is still open, and this document does not preclude that from taking place to have that land trade at another location.
We are working through the details of how that alternative would occur with the developer, because again, if the PUD is not approved, I mean, our desire is that the PUD would be approved and that we have a driving range solution somewhere else. But if there is not a driving range solution somewhere else, we do need to consider that the full project with phase 1 and 2 as contemplated here may look different.
Yeah, at the Woodwind grand opening event last week, Mayor Willis got up and spoke and talked about the improvements at the club and all the, a lot of the great things that are gonna happen. And he mentioned that there was a possibility of a driving range, or at least there was a desire that a driving range was wanted. And it was the only thing that was mentioned during his talk where 30 or 40 people applauded. So it is something that is desired, at least for the residents in that area, but a moneymaker for somebody that wants to use a driving range and a training facility for golf. I've been the one challenging on this initiative. I know that there's an agreement to make Old Town whole, and I'm not arguing that we need to make them whole because they are giving the city the land to build the 3 new holes, and there's a cost associated with that. My concern is that the land swap doesn't necessarily need to be where the existing golf course is on the south side. It could be somewhere else. Number 2 is that none of us will be in this position. In fact, the mayor may not be the mayor when this is executed, because it's going to be at least 3 years before there's any
Holes are ready.
activity on the north side, right? And nothing is gonna happen on the south side until significant activity is happening on the north side. So this could be 3 to 5 years out. And for us to commit to something this far in advance, I think is a little dangerous. And so we put some writing in that gives us the option to make Old Town whole, but not necessarily in
that
this
parcel.
location. So I just wanna be clear on that.
Okay. Okay, any other questions for Janelle on this one? Thank you for the clarification, John. I think that's well worth it.
I just want to remind everyone I'm just abstaining again.
Thank you.
You'll be abstaining. Thank you, Larry, for the reminder. Okay, if we have no other questions, I'll open for a motion for approval of Resolution 22-2025.
Motion to approve.
Second.
John Dart, and second by Brian Pawlowski. All in favor? David?
Joe Plankis,
Aye.
John Dart,
Aye.
Brian Pulaski.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0. Thank you very much. Larry Kemper is shown as abstaining. Okay, that's the last of our action items. Do we have any other business?
We have one more.
Oh,
We had one that was added on here, and this is TIF pass-throughs, Resolution 2325.
I see that. I apologize. I did not have that on my printout from yesterday.
Yes, thank you. And we apologize for the late addition. This is a report that is due to the county by June 15th, and our meeting in June is June 16th. And they have actually asked this all be sent to them by June 13th, which is a Friday. So this is the reason that it is being done here at the last minute, so I apologize. So we have made no changes from the pass-throughs that were presented a year ago. This includes an exhibit of all of the redevelopment areas and allocation areas within the city, and a description of the amounts being passed through to taxing units. So this is the notification. We will have $572,800 of incremental assessed value to the overlapping taxing units from the Grand Junction allocation area. We will have $1,235,800 of incremental assessed value to the overlapping taxing units from the east side allocation area. And then this one is that, this is specific for the, this is multiple allocation areas, and that, I'm sorry, I'm trying to summarize this one.
There is no excess.
Yeah, there is no excess. So this is associated with the gigabit I forget what.
Basically, it
this
won't be
is.
anything
Yeah, there's no excess, so there's
allocated
nothing, yeah, there's nothing to
for
pass
any of
through on
these,
this last one.
TIF areas.
Correct. Yeah, and this has a quite long list of allocation areas. Aurora, Eagletown, Main Street, 146th, Westfield South Side, Spring Mill Station, Spring Mill Station, SWC, Spring Mill Center, Union Square, Osborne Trails South, Wheeler Landing, SEP, Front Street, Gigabit Broadband, PP, Town Run, Park Street, South Park, and Ambrose allocation areas. And that list will grow next year as we have been creating more allocation
Right.
areas. Yeah.
Is this something you
So-
worked on, Janelle, with Bondry?
So, yes and no. These pass-throughs existed before I was here at Westfield, and we have continued to pass through the same amount,
So
partially
there's no
because.
change in what we were doing previously?
Correct. We're just continuing to do exactly what we had been doing before because we've been not notified of any reason that we should be modifying that pass-through. So in the absence of new information, we've continued to do what we're doing before.
I imagine with the SB1, there'll probably be some changes perhaps next year. Who knows?
We'll see.
We'll see.
We'll definitely be studying things.
Okay, so we have Resolution 23-25. Do I have a motion for approval?
Motion approved.
Okay, Brian Pulowski, motion for approval. Do I have a second?
Second.
John Dart, thank you, John. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. David?
Joe Plankis.
Aye.
John Dart.
Aye.
Larry Kemper.
Aye.
Brian Pulowski.
Motion passes 4-0. Thank you very much. Now I think we are finished. Is there anything else we need to add, Janelle?
No, there's nothing else tonight.
Okay, very good. Our next regular meeting will be Monday, June 16th at 5:15 for executive session, 6 o'clock for regular meeting. All in favor of adjournment, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. 6:51 PM, David.